Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the most listened to podcast on YouTube. This is Film Fries for myself, Matt, and my two co-hosts, Tyler
Hello.
and Mark.
Hello.
Providing completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. But today, we have
I have to
a
edit
special
that now.
guest. That might have just ruined the audio. We have a special guest who made one appearance earlier, also in a Batman video.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex.
technically this is my first appearance if you only watch us on Spotify and the podcasting app.
Tyler didn't upload our Batman trailer
No, I
breakdown on
did.
Spotify?
Did you? I didn't see it.
No, I only did it as YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this is
Wow.
the first appearance if you're only listening to Spotify or the podcasting app.
Exactly. So, Matt, what are we talking about? No, it's my thing.
No. So, Alex, since this is your recommendation, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 2005 magnum opus, the beloved superhero movie Batman Begins, one of the movies that reinvented the Hollywood blockbuster and one of the films that made Christopher Nolan a household name for basic normies like myself.
So, Alex, you're a bit of a Batman connoisseur of sorts.
Yes, I kind of like Batman, I guess.
Yeah, was this the movie that got you into Batman?
Honestly, I would say yes. I watched the old 60s show with my dad, like, before this, and I remember watching, like, the Joel Schumacher movies before this. And then I remember it was like TNT or FX had like a Batman movie marathon or something, and I watched Batman Forever and Batman and Robin for like the second or third time. And eventually, like, they got to the Christopher Nolan stuff, so they played Batman Begins after that. And I remember it was like a Saturday or something. It was like 8 p.m. I was in my basement watching it on a CRT, eating like a Klondike bar. And I just remember, like, this is one of the greatest movies I've ever watched in my entire life. Like, honestly, like, that movie is what put me on the course of where I am today, both as like a Batman fan, also just like as a person, as an engineer.
Yeah.
And like so many facets of my life have just been like revolved around this movie. So I would say that it's a little important to me. I'm probably a little biased towards it, but yeah, I like the movie a little bit.
This is all a rewatch for all of us. I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
we've all seen
it.
this. When was
So
the
I guess
first
we can
time-
go. Do you want to just go around and say like general impressions of the movie on our rewatch of it?
Yeah, sure. Mark,
Okay.
do you want to go first? You want to give us what you think?
Sure, yeah. The first time I saw this movie was like, I don't know, like 10 years ago. So watching it now is like sort of like a whole new experience, I guess. I knew some of the major plot points, but like for one, I didn't remember the fact that like I never remembered why Batman was in the mountains. I was like, does he just want to beat people up in like a foreign country or something?
He's rich. He's wanting to go on a super crazy vacation.
Yeah.
Most
and then I was like,
famous.
oh, he's
National
like
Lampoon's Christmas special.
Yeah.
With Batman.
He's looking for like the nature of evil or something. So I was like, oh, that's a cool plot point. That's a cool way to introduce it. I think as an origin story, it's great. Do I like the movie as a whole? Kind of. But I think for what it is, it does a great job. I do have some gripes with some aspects of it, but overall, I enjoyed it on my second viewing.
Alex is someone who really loved it his first time seeing it. As someone who's older now, has like your rewatch maintain consistency with how much you like it?
Oh yeah, no, like honestly, like when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, Batman's kicking ass and taking names. But like I've learned as like this isn't my second time rewatching this movie. This is probably like I've lost track. I've probably seen this movie definitely over 10 times in my lifetime, and like I've picked up on smaller aspects of like different character motivations and like where like the movie draws source from like the source material and like different aspects of the world. And like also, I mean, I'm not like as well versed in like cinema as you guys are, but like I'm able to pick up like certain cinematic like not takeaways, but like references, or like when like Christopher Nolan like works something in from another movie that he liked, and I can like pick up on that. And yeah, no, and I've also like learned to appreciate it more as like a character-driven story than just like a B-list action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, I just saw your letterbox review, and I feel like we are probably the lowest on this movie.
I expected this.
Do you want to talk about? Well, first off, this is my third time seeing this movie. I watched it once when I was like 13, 14, and I remember really liking it. And then when I got to watch it probably towards the end of high school, early college, when I rewatched all the Batman movies, and I remember liking it less. And now at the after college and post like really getting into movies, I have a lot of issues with this movie. I think this is like okay, so this is also, we should preface, this is also part of our director series. We talk a lot
I
about
probably should have mentioned that.
yeah, we talk about a specific director, and I think this movie is representative of all of Christopher Nolan's faults as a director, specifically with how his dialogue, which this movie has some of the worst dialogue and least human characters I've ever seen.
Or towards the beginning, I would say.
Towards the beginning,
Yeah.
the first 45 minutes of this movie, I think, are really bad. And there's a lot of things I want to touch on, but that also might get us a lot of hate because this movie, I was looking at reviews, is loved. It's like, it's acclaimed, and I was really struggling with that. But I also think this is a really bad action movie, with the exception of one particular scene, which we can get to when we talk to Hallmark points. But I don't know what you thought about it.
So even when I was younger, I was never really particularly a big fan of this movie. I think The Dark Knight isn't my favorite movie or one of my favorite movies, but it's like undeniably the most influential movie and like what got me into liking movies the way I do today. I think this movie is fine. I think that I'm actually more engaged in this movie when there's no fight scenes going on. I really like some of the dialogue later on, like the ones between I like Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. I love Christian Bale I think he's really great as Bruce Wayne. I like how he takes that American Psycho Patrick Bateman sort of character and makes a more PG-13 version of that character. But yeah, once the fight scenes start, I get kind of checked out. I think that with the warehouse fight, it starts really good, but then once the fists start flying, I think that's when it sort of just looks like people are standing there and someone's holding the camera, and people are just told to go like this to make it look like something's happening. But I thought the score is really good. I was really into the movie, like when he's building the suit, or when he's making his comeback into Gotham when Scarecrow starts taking over. But I mean, once the fight scenes start happening, I kind of get checked out. And I actually liked the first 45 minutes of the movie. I kind of liked it when he's training. I mean, the dialogue isn't subtle by any means, but I think there's some cool moments. I think they edit like the flashbacks and the training sequences pretty well, in my opinion. But yeah, like, I guess someone who wasn't really a big fan of the movie to begin with, it wasn't like shocking or anything. I was just kind of, my opinions kind of were maintained, I would say.
Yeah. We should, I feel like, because Alex, you've clearly established your love of Batman, how it's influenced you. And I feel like we should also, Mark, Matt, and I should establish that we don't really have emotional ties to anything like this, which is why we can kind of look at it from, like, it's a Batman movie, but it's also kind of just a movie in general.
Which is why I kind of like mentioned that, like, I'm willing to accept that I'm biased towards.
Oh yeah.
Movie, but
I mean, I was biased for Man of Steel for a while, but eventually, but that's one of the things is I think, because I mentioned I really didn't like the first 45 minutes of this movie, and I think that's because of how Christopher Nolan struggles a lot with dialogue, and Christopher Nolan struggles with creating characters who feel like people. And I think that's a big issue I have in this movie, is these characters do not feel like people who exist outside the movie. I don't picture anyone in this movie being a person. And I think that's just because there's one scene that I rewatched after the movie that was really kind of emblematic of what I'm talking about. And it's when Bruce Wayne and Rachel meet again after Bruce Wayne has been gone for 7 years, and they're long life friends. And yeah, their meeting is a little awkward, but it's just the type of dialogue. They don't sound like people. Everyone speaks in this movie in a metaphor, talks about symbols, or speaks in some kind of like coded riddle. Or at least it sounds like that in some capacity. No one is just like, I'm a person, except for one line, and that's usually with like the Bruce and Alfred stuff, where there's that relationship where he's like, you should probably take a water polo. And he's like, I'm not going to do polo, Alfred. I'm like, that's something that someone would say. And that was, I laughed at that part. But then you get where he's just like talking to people, and he's like, I have symbol. And he talks about kind of all this stuff. And like Rachel's just like, you are basically like, your actions speak louder than words, but more kind of like poetic. And I think it just takes me out of the movie completely.
I kind of have to greatly disagree with that. I mean, Sure,
Yeah, I disagree with that.
I agree with like points that you make that like dialogue is not subtle or it can be ham-fisted at points, but I never really took that as a way that the movie made it unrelatable for me. Like one of the things I love about this movie more than like The Dark Knight or uh or like Dark Knight Rises is that there's like a focus, there's like an emotional core to the Bruce Wayne character, and even like Christian Bale and I want to talk about Christian Bale's performance later, and Christopher Nolan kind of like came from the same standpoint of this, is that like he's a character that he doesn't overcome like his demons, like like the stereotypical like, oh, I'm bitter because of this experience. It's more that it's he learns to channel his demons and all of his selfish and like darkest aspects of himself for something good instead of just like overcoming it, which he thought was like, and I kind of relate to as like a really relatable aspect of like a person, because like for example, like like a personal experience of mine. I joined a club in college that made like cheap prosthetic like limbs or like arms for like children with limb differences. But like I joined that club because I just wanted to access to 3D printers and nothing else. I didn't really care, which is like a bad thing to say, but like I ended up helping anyways. So it's like even though I joined for selfish purposes, it's almost like warranted because it's like I mean, people do good things, but like, how often do people do good things because they're good instead of, oh, I want to like vent some steam or something like that? And it also, I don't think this was intentional, but it kind of relates to like Aristotelian virtue ethics, which I don't know if Mark would
Yeah,
agree
Mark,
with
this is
this,
right
but
up your alley.
Yeah,
Mark, this is
Mark.
it. This is you've been
because
studying for this.
because
Mark's like, they're gonna find out I have actually read anything about Aristotle.
because Aristotelian virtue ethics is mainly centered on like making a habit of doing virtuous things, even if you start for unvirtuous purposes. It's more just about repetition of doing good things, and like instead of just being like a ham-fisted like, oh, I'm going to be a superhero now. He kind of just does it because he has anger, he has fears, he has demons, he has guilt, and he has like all these negative emotions, but they're kind of just reined in and like narrowed in the channel of like philanthropy and doing good things because of the example of his father and his mother. And also, I kind of don't get like the point of like, oh, dialogue is ham-fisted, so I don't feel like these are real characters because like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is filled with that shit, but like you still relate to Tobey Maguire half the time.
See, okay, so
Some
this
of
is
us
And I
do.
Well,
bleed.
I want to.
I
I
hold
have a
on, Mark.
rebuttal.
Because hold on, one quick thing. I
Okay.
just want to throw this out that it's the nature of how the movie is presented. Christopher Nolan set out to make a realistic take on Batman. What would happen if Batman existed in the real world? So you have to view the movie from that lens. We are viewing our world on the screen. So when we have a character and people who all they do is talk in metaphors and with poetic languages, none of it feels accessible. But then you have scenes where you look at the actual ramifications of what happens, like physical ramifications of what happens to play and be Batman, but you contradict that with characters that just don't feel like they exist in any real capacity, and that means it, and that in essence contradicts what Nolan is going for.
I have a fat
Well,
rebuttal for this.
Okay.
wait.
Okay.
So
I'll let
I'll
you go first, Mark.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first because you've been waiting.
So yeah, I don't want to like under. It's not here. Let me start over. I'm going to talk about Roger Ebert's review because he pointed something out to me that if
I
I
think I know what
read
you're
it,
gonna bring up.
if I hadn't read it, I would be agreeing with Tyler right now. But he says like he sort of what you just said, Tyler. Like it's a realistic take on Batman. It's set in the real world, but the ideas are like so fantastical, I guess you could say, that you can't really take them at face value. Maybe that's I don't know if I'm butchering it, but
You are.
basically like okay, thanks. But like tying back to
My
the
viewers
idea of
gonna
like
curse you now.
I'm honored. Uh, going back to the idea of like symbols and ideas, like I think maybe this is not exactly what Nolan was going for, but sort of how I see it now is like Rachel Dawes and like Commissioner Gordon like aren't exactly fleshed out as characters, but they're symbols and ideas of like the good that's in Gotham. And then Batman's a symbol, obviously, and so I guess maybe that's why we get a lot of characters that aren't exactly fleshed out and feel real,
But I feel like
But
you also have to frame a lot of stuff from Nolan as director, because this is a common thing throughout Nolan's movies. He doesn't, and that's why I love his movie Dunkirk, because Dunkirk is stripped of all the dialogue and focuses solely on the spectacle and how that impacts that. But if you look at something like, we could go in with Insomnia. Insomnia has some of the, it's just flat, distant dialogue that creates flat and distant characters. This isn't a one-time trend for Nolan. This is throughout the course of his filmography and his career.
Yeah, but Insomnia is about a detective in Alaska, and Batman is about a guy who dresses as a bat and then fights a guy who has toxins that make
That's
people
true.
see
That
their,
is
see
it's
their
also an
blood and
adaptation.
dreams.
Yeah.
Um,
But I wanted to bring up, because like Tyler keeps bringing that, like Christopher Nolan went out with this movie in the intent of making it the realistic Batman. I think you're wrong. Like, he never anticipated making, oh, I'm going to make Batman, but if he was realistic. And like, you can even see that in this movie, because like, sure, things are grounded in reality, but like Mark and indirectly Roger Ebert said that like it's supposed to be fantastical, but it's like grounded enough that you're able to relate to it, but it's not so fantastical that you can't be like, oh, that'll never happen. And like Christopher Nolan even like coined this term as like cinematic realism, where it's like it's not really realistic, but you're able to relate to aspects of it because it's just like this grounded experience that like
um,
it's not like, oh, these are normal people, but like you can see, oh, I can see where they're coming from, or I can see why they would do that,
I have to agree with both of you in a weird way.
which is
So
fair.
I agree with Alex. He says that this movie isn't supposed to be super grounded because literally the first confrontation, other than like literally the beginning of the movie, is him fighting ninjas.
Mhm.
So I mean, I don't know why people would think that it's supposed to be this gritty, realistic Batman movie. I mean, they kind of established in the beginning that hey, I'm fighting ninjas in Tibet or whatever. So it's not really like it's trying to be that gritty. But also, I kind of agree with Tyler with some of the dialogue. I think that a lot of Liam Neeson's dialogue early on is heavy-handed,
Oh
and
yeah,
then there's
I
like a
agree
couple of
that
scenes. What?
I agree that like dialogue isn't like exactly natural, but I
Yeah,
think that like you're able to get who these characters are and what they're doing from
yeah.
it.
And then there's just some scenes like when Christian Bale and girlfriend are in the car
Katie
and
Holmes.
Yeah,
Katie
yeah, no,
Holmes and they're
no.
driving and like they're talking about the corruption in Gotham and and then Katie Holmes is like, oh, but justice is impartial, and goes, oh, not this justice here. It's some of it is just a little on the nose, but again, it didn't really take me out of the movie. I would just say that. And then the same thing can be said for The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. I mean,
Yeah, which is
everyone
what
is
Tyler
sort of a
said.
representation of a theme or an idea more than an actual
Well,
character.
this
And
is
it's all
this is
kind of
also
circles around Ben Affleck. I mean, Christian Bale.
well, this is also why I feel like The Dark Knight works more in this capacity, because it uses Nolan, because you can use, because when you have the character like the Joker, who represents basically just chaos itself, you can have him be this chaotic and kind of, hate to use the word poetic in that case, but poetic
It
sounding
rhymes.
character. Yeah. But I feel like in this one it doesn't work a little bit, or at least it just doesn't work for me. Because I understand why someone would love this movie.
That's
And
fair.
now yeah, but I feel like we're also going
Like
in
I
circles.
I can see what you're saying. I'm just saying for me, like I never had an issue with that, and I can see where you're coming from. I wanted to talk about this earlier so we can like get around this circle jerk, because Matt kind of brought this up, just like how like Christian Bale's performance in this movie. Out of like the Dark Knight trilogy, I think this is his best movie. Like as Batman, I think this is like the time he does the most for the character, and like the time he stood out for me. Like when people say that Christian Bale is their favorite Batman, I really think they mean, oh, I really liked Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and Christian Bale was there, so I like him.
That's a good point.
Because
Good
like,
point.
Point.
there's an interview on like the Charlie Rose show, I think. That was like from 2005 when like the movie was coming out, and Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan were talking about like this movie, promoting it and stuff. And like I feel like Christian Bale really had an understanding for this character, because he was like talking about like, oh, I watched like the Tim Burton movies and like the Joel Schumacher movies and like the 60s show, and I'm just like, these aren't Batman. These are kind of just like a parody of Batman. Because like if you look at those movies, there isn't really much to say about Batman, which is surprising because he's in the title of all 4 of them. But like he talked about how he was like reading Jeff Loeb's Long Halloween and Grant Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on a Serious Earth, and he like understood that Batman is this raw emotional character who was fueled by his own demons and like his own negative emotions, but he uses it as like a force for good, which is like what he's like, which is what he said in the interview. He described Batman as this character who is capable of great destruction and like great pain and great anger, but he's like led by the example of his father into philanthropy and like channeling that anger into something good. And that's like something I really kind of like about the Batman character, because he's this character that's fueled by like all these negative and tragic emotions, but he's able to rise above it and become something else, a symbol to make the criminals in Gotham pee their pants and be afraid to walk the streets at night. And I don't know, I feel like this is just like my favorite interpretation, not like this exact movie, but like this is how I ideally visualize Batman. Like when people say Batman to me, this is what I think of. And like the look, like the acting, and just like the offhanded nature of Christian Bale's performance, I think is perfect. Like, not perfect, but like really good.
Yeah.
And like Matt even brought this up. That's like a PG-13, like Patrick Bateman, basically, where it's like he almost kind of plays 3 separate characters. There's like the charismatic Bruce Wayne, just like, oh, a guy that dresses like a bat clearly has issues. Like the guy in the Batman costume that's like, swear to me. And then there's just like the actual who Bruce Wayne is. He's just like this, uh, like he's like an actual person that you can relate to with like all these. I keep saying negative emotions, but like that's kind of the theme of this movie, so it's kind of hard not to repeat myself.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is definitely Christian Bale's best performance as Batman. I wouldn't say this is his best performance ever, because like I'm not worldly about movies. I haven't seen all of his movies, and also clearly Newsies is better. So
Yeah, I feel like that's a very good point. I feel like the performances in this movie are all really great. I think Cillian Murphy's the best part of this movie.
Like funny story about like Cillian Murphy is that like he auditioned for the role of Batman, but Christopher Nolan didn't like him as Batman, but he liked him so much that he just made him Scarecrow on the spot.
That makes sense because Cillian Murphy acts everyone in this movie under the rug.
Even I can agree with that.
Even like Christian Bale, and I do agree. I think Christian Bale's really good in this movie. But there's a certain level of like magnetism that Cillian Murphy has in his performance.
I kind of am sad that he was like in the movie for like a total like 20 minutes. I kind of wish there was more of him, to be honest.
Yeah, so do
I. He appears later in the trilogy because like everyone just liked him so much.
Yeah, they got him a little camp. What do you guys think, Matt and Mark?
He wasn't in as much as I thought he was going to be, like what Alex said. I was surprised. I mean, every time he was on screen, I was really into the movie. Like his interactions with Katie Holmes were really great when they're kind of like outwitting each other in their sort of like law talk or whatever. I thought that stuff was good. And did anyone? This is totally random, but did anyone think that the guy who played Frank Falcone or
Carmine Falcone?
Him. I thought he was kind of bad.
He was fine.
I didn't like
I wasn't like
mobster.
Exactly like, oh my god, this is great, but I'm like, yeah, he's a mobster. Like he
just like because like relating to Cillian Murphy, like when they're in the interrogation room and he's in the fear toxins. I just thought that he was totally.
What are you talking about? He was literally just screaming when he was on the fear toxin.
Just his face. I don't know.
Well, there's something like there's something like very like cliche about it. He's just like, I'm a mobster, see? Like he's doing
he just feels like he's playing a cartoon version of a mobster.
Yeah, I agree.
But without the cartoon element.
Hey, Dr. Crane, the walls are screaming at me. Yeah. And, a few more weeks of this food, and it's gonna be true.
Yeah. He would fit perfectly in a Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
It's terrible.
I don't think he's campy enough to be in a Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think? Do you have anything about the performances? Anything that stood out to you?
Great, he does it. All right, let's move on. No.
Oh, okay, cool. No, I definitely agree with your point about Cillian Murphy. I think when he comes on screen, you sort of sit up in your chair because he has a sort of this heavy-handed presence in the film. Yeah, we talked about a lot of things. I don't know. I don't know the pieces
Have
to
you guys
cover.
have you guys ever seen like the actual like not the it's like the audition tapes that had like Christian Bale and like Cillian Murphy and
Killian.
Cillian Murphy, whatever. Cillian Murphy and
From Ireland.
I think like Ian Bailey as Batman. Like they're all like auditioning as Bruce Wayne and Batman. You can find this stuff on YouTube because it's pretty interesting. But like it's kind of interesting seeing how Christopher Nolan decided on who is Batman. Because I have the art and making of the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh my God.
Wow.
A long time ago. But like I'm reading like stuff he did about like casting and like the section he's talking about like Christian Bale, and he's talking about like how Christian Bale was the only guy to audition for Batman that gave Batman a distinctive voice from Bruce Wayne. And I was like, like that can't be true. But then I'm watching it, and like Cillian Murphy, he's good as Bruce Wayne, but he's a horrible Batman. Cillian Murphy, he's a good Bruce Wayne because he has like this off, like distant nature to him. Like he doesn't want to socialize with anyone else because he doesn't want to bother with people. But then as Batman, he's just like Falcone was at the docks. Where is he?
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
highly recommend it. It's like 5 minutes on YouTube, and it's kind of enjoyable to watch. Also, they wear the nipple bat suit from Batman Forever, which is
Oh,
kind of
good
funny.
God. I feel like we talked about the dialogue, and that was one of our big kind of like common complaints. But I feel like we should talk about the action scenes because I feel like
Yeah,
that's another
Mark.
one of our big. Mark, if you wanna go talk about these, because I think that might be like some common ground a little bit in areas between all of us here.
I definitely agree with the dialogue as well.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the action in a second, but there's a specific line of dialogue right at the beginning of the movie that I groaned when I heard it. And he was like, when he's in the prison
I think I know what
in
you're talking
Tibet,
about.
Yeah.
and he's like, "I'm the devil," and he's like, "No, you're practice." And I was like, "Oh
Okay.
man."
Do you
You're
get
a
it?
manager, man,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I am the devil.
Yeah, and then that first meeting with Ra's al Ghul, it was like such a weird exchange.
It's all
I did not-
metaphors. It's all talking literally about what they represent, and I think
But
that's
isn't that the exact opposite of a metaphor to not be
that's-
literal?
that's a good point. Fine, they are.
Bruce and English major.
Damn, we got us. All right, fine. They are literal. They are
But yeah, no,
literal
they do.
representations. They are saying what they represent, and I think that's it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me, but I agree with it.
Speaking of
Yeah.
metaphors, Mark, what do you think about the fight scenes?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna go. We're gonna
Horrible
go.
transition.
We'll just fight about this dialogue all episode.
Man, I hate the way the action was shot. It's just like handheld, quick cut. I can't tell what the hell is even going on. It's just like punching noises and like different shades of black just moving on the screen, just because his cape's all over the place. Thinking back to like when we did Insomnia, and we talked about the action in that movie where Christopher Nolan was just like shooting feet and like these weird overhead shots. It was
Yeah.
like, what is this? And he obviously has a different style in this one, but it did not work for me. It was just so disorienting.
There's definitely an
Um,
improvement compared to Insomnia.
Well, it's an improvement.
Yeah.
It's an improvement.
So you can at least say
It's
that.
an improvement,
But
okay?
like the warehouse fight, it starts so well. I really like the warehouse. I really like the first half of the warehouse fight because it's just people getting picked off one by one.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, really well done. It doesn't really make sense how he's able to jump
Okay.
around, but it's like,
I just wanna talk
whatever.
about when he drags the person into the crate, all I could imagine is him knocking the person out and then like stumbling in the darkness over the boxes in there
Yeah.
to get out and then to like run up because that's
Yeah.
the issue. It's really cool when
He just knocks over a bunch of cans so you
He's
can
like,
see.
"Oh, shit."
'cause
He's
it's-
oh
It's
shit.
like
but-
there's even a moment like that in like the Arkham Asylum fight where like he's picking off Scarecrow's men one by one, and I love the shot where like some guy he has a gun, and you just see this black shape just grab him and pull him into the shadows, and he's screaming and he's shooting his gun, and you
Ah!
don't see him, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool, but it also like it's just I can't help but laugh because I just imagine him like stumbling. Maybe he trips on his cape in the dark. He's like, oh fuck, and then kind of like keeps going, and then he's like, all right, I gotta keep going.
Nah,
There's-
dude, he just hardens it into a big shape above his head so he never steps
Yeah.
on it.
That was such a cool sound like they made when he goes into when he's near the shadow, and like I like the sound. It just looks like he's being eaten by the darkness, which I thought was
Yeah.
cool. And then it's built very slowly. I think Christopher Nolan does a good job of building tension. But then once he lands and he's surrounded by the goons, I can't tell what's going on. It's
we
just
I just want to throw out one thing real quick as kind of a joke, but have you guys ever like hung upside down? Whenever he hangs upside down, that just like is such like a head rush of blood. It's like you ever just like hang over your
Nah,
bed.
dude, that suit is so that rubber suit is so tight it operates like a G suit, so it just keeps all the blood in the right spot.
It just keeps it just presses all the
No,
blood together.
that's like basically how like a lot of G suits work. They just like compress blood so it doesn't. pool in.
Okay. See, I didn't know that.
I mean, I'm not saying that's how Batman's suit works. I'm just saying that's how science works.
What if he had to like perch himself upside down one day and he like knocked himself out because he was upside down so long he just fell in front of the bad guys? I always thought that'd be kind of funny.
I want to see that movie.
Yeah. All right. So
Matt,
we
Matt, take
talked
that
about
down.
that.
Write that
What?
down.
Write that down,
Yeah.
Matt. So basically, I am in complete agreement with the action scenes. I think everything outside of the Tumblr scene is really horribly filmed. And I think, yeah, Insomnia was really bad because Insomnia didn't know where to focus on the action. And you get scenes of him running
Insomnia
on the
had no
log.
focus.
Insomnia had no focus, you're right. But this one, it is really struggles and it's really highlighted because it can get away with Insomnia because it's not a fighting movie. It's a detective movie. This one's a superhero fist fight, cinematic realism fight scene where you're like, this is a real guy trying to he's trained and he's fighting, but none of it follows. And this is kind of before like the pre-2008 Taken, where action started to become a little bit more on screen a little bit, and you can kind of see the movies highlighted. So this was 2005, so that we were in like that middle of the road, like action was kind of a little chaotic, and it's just really highlighted because there's so much of it.
Yeah, Alex, what do you
I don't know
think
if
about
Mark
the
wants to
fights?
go before me because I'm gonna like spiel in the exact opposite direction. So if Mark wants to get any of his points now, I think it'd be better.
About the action.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just thinking about like the action we get today. Like think like what Old Guard and John Wick and
Old Guard
like
even
Extraction.
isn't like the best example of it.
No.
Old Guard,
yeah,
Old
but
Guard
it's like
still-
it's like the new way of shooting action. It's just like the wide, not like a wide shot, but you see everything.
action's
Well,
on screen.
specifically
That's the thing.
choreographed.
That's the thing is
Yeah.
that a lot of John Wick kind of started that trend of showing the action again,
Yeah.
but the movies that have followed it, like Extraction and The Old Guard, aren't good at filming in that same way.
Yeah.
They don't focus on the choreographing enough, and it just looks terrible and doesn't look real. And you can see all the edits and stuff that they make. It's like I don't want every action movie to be filmed like John Wick. 'Cause I don't think that I don't think that would be good. I'm trying to think of like Dread. Dread doesn't have amazing, but it doesn't have wide shot action scenes. But you always know what's going on in it. You can film a scene like that. You can do cuts in a fight scene. It's just that Batman Begins, the fight scenes of Batman Begins are like the camera's like over their head, like over their shoulders, so you can see their heads and just going like this back and forth. And I don't think I even saw a single punch being thrown and connecting to someone.
That's the thing is you can look at I completely forgot about this, but a prime example around the same time is the Bourne movies. The Bourne movies are notorious for having chaotic action scenes that are filmed, but they're still coherent because the camera shakes with the movement. The camera shakes while you watch the punch. You see
Paul Greengrass is the only director who can do shaky cam and make it look good.
You're exactly. Even like Matt, we watched 71, and 71 has cases of that handheld, but it's also it's not Paul Greengrass level, but it's shaky.
Competent.
It's competent. This movie is shaky in the action. This movie reminds me more of like Taken 2 or Taken 3 action, where things are so chaotic, but you can't track the movements. You often just see people fall, and then the cape flies, and then things fall down, and then he has knocked out 7 people. And you're like, I didn't see him knock out one person. I do
Dude,
like
what about the guy that was peeing and he smashed his face into the mirror.
yeah. There's that, but again, like I like the
Dick
scenes
move.
where Batman will stalk and will like take people out strategically because that's just cool. That's just fun. Watching him perched up and then the come down and then the person screams or he goes like, "Where are you?" and here, and then he, you look at you're like, that's so cool. And then he gets in that circle of people and you're just like, this, I don't. You're like, all right, cool. And I get that there's a thematic purpose for it. The bad guys are chaotic and you're capturing it. But what about the scene later on towards the end where he fights? He's like, I can beat 2 of your goons, and then and 2 more come down. That should be the scene where we're showcase Batman's skill because he's taking out 4 of the people he trained with. But instead, it's the same, like, oh man, whoa, and then he falls down. It's chaotic. And Alex,
I'm
take it
gonna
away.
have to disagree to an extent. I mean, I'm not gonna say this is like the warehouse fight from like Batman versus Superman, but like I feel like
That's
this never took me out of the movie. And also, like, you guys talk about like this was a big aspect of the movie, which I really don't think it was. Like, I could probably name the number of fights on one hand. There's like the final League of Assassins fight where he proves himself. There's the first appearance of Batman. There, like, I'm talking about like this quick shaky cam. There's the I don't think there's any quick shaky cam in like Arkham Asylum. So there's like the six goons. There's the Ra's al Ghul fight.
Roz Al Ghul, this is your thing.
It's Ra's. The movie got it wrong.
We're going off the movie. Roz. Is how you
Fine,
say
Raz,
Roz.
Mr. Ra's al Ghul.
Raz?
Yeah. But like, I mean, like personally, like I do agree that like the like the bits where he's basically just a predator. I love that. But I mean, for me, I never had an issue with like the shaky cam and like quick cuts because like if you look at like the later movies, it has like slow, like thought out action, but it kind of like zaps the scene of like any energy. Like for example, like The Dark Knight Rises, there's literally a scene in the movie, like this triple A high budget blockbuster where you can blatantly see a point where some guy just falls over even though Batman punched him from like 10 feet away. You put fist is right here, and you just feel. Actually, I don't even think they show a punch. He just goes like, and then just falls over, and you can like blatantly see that in the movie. And it
He
just,
had a force field gadget that
Yeah.
you didn't know about.
Yeah,
No,
that's
'cause
it. But that's a
people are
filmmaking
like,
mistake, though. That's not. That's just a mess up in the filmmaking.
but I'm saying if like had like that quick shaky cam, that would be less noticeable.
But you can't see. But the difference is,
But
again,
like
we just.
my point is that like it like lacks the energy of like in Batman Begins because like sure it's chaotic and you don't understand it, but like at least for like when he's fighting criminals, like these basic goons, it kind of works because it just shows how fast he is and how like they don't even know what the fuck is going on until they're out cold on the floor, and I mean, like, I do agree that it doesn't really work for like the like when he's fighting like the six League of Assassins guys or like Ra's al Ghul on the train, but like I don't know, that was never an issue for me. Like, if like you could have had like a slow cut action scene at the first appearance of Batman, but like I think it would ruin it because one, you get a good look of Batman while doing it, which ruins the point of the scene, and like it kind of just ruins the energy of like Carmine Falcone in the car, just panicking because he just sees this thing surrounded by guys that he's beating up, and he has no idea what the fuck is going on. I mean, I can agree that you guys had problems with this, and I can understand, but for me personally, I never had an issue with it.
So you're saying like the best way to shoot Batman in action is to have the shaky cam? You think it serves the character in the best way possible?
No, but I'm saying in that point, it serves the moment.
Okay.
Like obviously, like I love the warehouse fight from Batman Begins. Like it's not Batman Begins, Batman versus Superman, because like it's fucking well choreographed and fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And like honestly, like if that was like something that Christopher Nolan would do, it'd be fucking awesome, and like it would be way better than any of the action scenes in Batman Begins. But for me, like the action was at bare minimum serviceable for me, and like I felt like at points it worked in its favor.
Did The Dark Knight have many hand-to-hand action scenes? It doesn't seem like it did.
No, I think like there's like one fight in like the strobe light club where he goes after Sal.
And he perches on the little railing. Yeah.
Yeah, then he perches him on the little railing, and then he takes him outside and throws him off a building. There's the fucking construction site, which I thought was fine, but like I kind of felt like I like how it worked as showing Batman as like a master tactician.
That's why I think The Dark Knight is so revered. Is because we don't have shaky cam action.
Where he's putting like not smoke bomb, like sticky bombs on like all the pillars.
Yeah.
He's like roping up people's legs, and I like that. But like, it kind of made Batman look less like this unstoppable force of nature and more like the world's best Marine.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that. I just think again, Christopher Nolan doesn't know how to film action.
Yeah,
we got a really good couple examples of that he can if he's creative in Inception.
He can do car scenes, we know that.
But I'd also rather I don't necessarily think frantic energy it doesn't always equate to coherence. It can be frantic, but I'd rather have like the realistic, slow and deliberate fights from The Dark Knight Rises where he's like methodically punching these guys instead of, and then everyone's defeated. And you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
And like
that's great.
something like that would work for like his fight with like the League of Assassins and Ra's al Ghul on the train, because I feel like
But then they did do that,
they,
so
yeah,
it's an
no,
issue.
and I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. And like, because like the point is that they're not supposed to be really afraid of Batman because they know Batman. But like for like street goons that are afraid of him, I like that.
So it's split.
Yeah, no, like it worked in moments, but I'm not gonna say it's flawless. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it worked every time.
I think it would have been
It
better
definitely
if you just saw Falcone's reaction the whole time. Like you never even saw the shaky cam fight in the first place. You just hear them fighting outside. You hear like a gun going off. You hear people screaming and punching, and you just focus on Falcone
Yeah,
in
I
the
think that
car.
would.
Then all of a sudden he
that
gets pulled out, and then it's, I'm what are you on Batman scene?
I think that would work just as good. I'm just like, honestly, I think it would have been good. Like if you wanted like the not shaky cam, you could have had like a blurred like out of focus shot where it's like the focus is Carmine Falcone. He's looking out the window and he just sees like this black amorphous shape just beating up his guys.
Yeah.
Like, and like that could have worked. I'm just saying, like for me personally, I found no issue with some of the fight scenes in this. But but I can understand where you guys got like you guys hated it.
I kind of laughed during the fight scene with the first Ra's al Ghul, and like you set up that Liam Neeson is like he's like the best. He's always on his wits and everything. And then when Christian Bale's execute the guy, but then he throws the flame into the exploding things,
Yeah.
and then Liam Neeson's like he's like, what are you doing? And then just gets punched in the face and gets knocked out.
What is necessary, my friend?
I like
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's like Christopher Bale even responds to him and then punches him again all the time.
Yeah,
in the
no,
world
that was like
to
blatant,
prepare.
just like action here, like action movie moment right there.
Yeah,
Does that,
it wasn't.
does
It was
that,
like, oh, this is bad. It was just made me laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that Ken Watanabe fake Ra's al Ghul fight feel really awkward to anyone else? Because it feels like it's this old man swinging a sword. You're like, Christian Bale, you could just like drop kick him away, and it just made me laugh.
He has magic powers.
But he's Ra's al Ghul.
That's a good point.
But he dies so abruptly too. It's like they're fighting, and then
Because
like
he's not
the planks.
Ra's al Ghul.
Well, no, the planks like.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in the story, you don't know that yet, and then the planks fall. And it's like 5 like wooden planks. They're probably like it's like 100 pounds. And it
Yeah,
falls
but
on
they're on
him,
fire.
and then he's like he's dead.
It's like,
It's
My
just,
one
it was like
weakness,
I was like,
wooden
is he
planks.
dead?
Yeah.
Dude, one wooden plank almost took out the Batman. 5 wooden planks is gonna take out Ra's al Ghul.
I have
Fair
2
enough.
things. Can we quickly address the very uncomfortably awkward and out of place date rape joke that is in this movie?
I didn't even hear what Alfred said. What did
He
he
said
say?
there is that
Oh, yeah.
scene where Rachel is
I'm not
unconscious.
too worse for wear, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and it's just like it's just weird and it's played for comedy and it's really out of place and it feels like it's Christopher Nolan going, I can be funny, and then he makes this really weird
I mean,
date
to
rape
be fair,
joke.
this movie kind of proves that like he kind of can be funny, because there's like a lot of like good quips in this movie.
There's
I mean,
one I laughed.
Not that exactly, but like there's a bunch of good quips in this movie.
There's one where he's I'm not gonna take Polo Alfred, and the way he says it made me laugh.
Oh, well, they're European. You know what? I'm buying this hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, you should see my other one. Like, there's so many good quips, Tyler. Like, you're just not having fun.
I am having well, this movie's not fun. This movie's
is
Now
dull.
I see movies where people cry
yeah.
for 2.5 hours. And then there's a bad fight scene at the end with against a robotic squid. And
Talking about Man of Steel.
And he has a constipation face. the
Hey,
entire
I gave
time.
Man of Steel and Batman Begins the same rating. I
Dude,
haven't.
that's a crime. That's a crime.
oh,
Matt,
that's terrible.
Yeah, Matt, please back me up. That's a crime.
Yeah, Man of Steel is like one of the worst movies ever
Officer,
made.
there he is right there.
This is not our Man of Steel therapy session. What else did you guys really like? Because first off, this movie was nominated for an Oscar for best cinematography.
Was it actually? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
I'm like split on that because the first half of this movie looks good. Then the rest of the movie is like dark.
You like
sets.
when they're in Asia?
Yeah, I think
Looks
that's
good.
First half looks like Insomnia.
Yeah, and then the next half is establishing shots of a dark city in a dark set, and it's just like okay, it was nominated for best cinematography, and I'm split.
Let's say it looked good throughout. I think that this movie, above the other Dark Knight movies, really captures like the feel for Gotham more than any other ones.
Yeah.
Like Gotham kind of just feels like a city in the Dark Knight Rises, whereas this movie I felt takes the time to make it look kind of unique.
Yeah,
And like I wanted to bring this point up earlier because like it's kind of similar to what Matt Reeves kind of said when in like his Q&A, where he kind of wanted to make like Gotham like recognizable but like also unique, and he took like film cues from like 1927's Metropolis with like the monorail running through the city that's like added on top, and like they kind of made like the whole Narrows part of Gotham kind of just like this weird hodgepodge of like modern day Chicago and like Blade Runner with like these like like heavy rain puddle filled alleyways with clotheslines dripping everywhere, smoke coming from every chimney, and like this ugly haze of brown and yellow. And I love that, like, because it made Gotham stand out more. As, like the Narrows has more character as a city than like any establishing shot in like of Gotham in the later films. Because like Batman Begins, it kind of made a point to make Gotham almost kind of like a character in its own right. At least maybe not the best execution like a Tim Burton movie or like what maybe Matt Reeves will do, but like it's better than just the Dark Knight here it's Chicago, and in the Dark Knight Rises here it's Manhattan, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Alex, that's a really good comparison about Metropolis.
Oh, I didn't come up with that. That's from the book. So
Well, that's a really great point. I just went through a whole series of thoughts because of that.
Mark was giving like the
they
screen,
didn't
like,
show pictures in the book. I had to look it up for myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I could see
Yeah.
the resemblance there.
Yeah, Metropolis. I'll talk that real quickly for a second because I never realized
Yeah,
how
I
many
knew you
similarities
get
there
a
are.
hit out of that.
There are so many. I just realized there's so many similarities because Metropolis, which is a 1927 silent film by Fritz Lang. It was a German film, but it's silent, so. And it's about this like idealized city, and the son of like the leader of the city realizes that the lower class of people I can't. You guys distract me. I can't even think. The lower class have like no rights, and they're just working all day. And the son, this really rich son of the owner, like basically like sort of leads this rebellion, sort of like what Bruce Wayne does. It's like almost like the same exact story.
And it kind of works for like
Gotham.
And it works for like Gotham because it's like Rachel Dawes, like after the court hearing, she takes him down underneath like like the proper Gotham, like all the shiny skyscrapers and shit. But like you see all like these like trash filled shopping carts, people like sleeping in cardboard tents and like trying to like make fires out of trash cans, and they're just trying to survive. And it's like I never realized that was part of Metropolis. All I knew was like the monorail thing. So yeah, that's
that's a good
also,
point.
another good quip was with that homeless guy. Just like, what do you want? Your coat. Oh, it's a nice coat. Just like, nice coat. Thanks.
Yeah. And then that homeless man shows up later at the fight scene. And he's like, hey, nice
he's
coat.
just like, nice coat. Thanks.
It's like, call back.
Yeah.
Nice.
And also,
no one knows what to do.
This movie is filled with so many callbacks, though. Like, there's like the bit where like Bruce comes back from Princeton, and he's like talking about like what he wants to do with his future, and he's like, you still haven't given up on me, Alfred. And he's like, never. And like one of my favorite points from this movie is like when Wayne Manor is falling apart, it's burning down, and he gets to the elevator and he escapes, and at the bottom, and Bruce Wayne is just seeing the legacy of his family burn right in front of him, and he's just feeling so much guilt. He's just like, I've let my parents down. I did this because I wanted to like avenge their deaths, and like he's almost like borderline crying, and he's just like, he's like, I failed, Alfred. And like there's the obvious like metaphor, just like, why do we fall, sir? So we can learn to lift ourselves back up. And he's like, you haven't given up on me, Alfred. And he's like, never. I'm like, I fucking love that scene. I don't care if it's ham-fisted. Like I live by that motto in my everyday life. Like I'm like afraid of failure, and I'm afraid of messing up. But we all gotta learn that it's not how you hit the mat, it's how you get back up. It's not
Film
how
Frost's
you
therapy session.
Yeah.
Woo!
Speaking of great scenes,
Yeah.
you want to go into Hallmark?
Wait,
I'll
there's
save mine for
still
last
there's still a few things I want to talk about that are really good. We've been dogging on the action scenes hand to hand. There is some like legitimately wonderful practical effects stuff. The Tumblr sequence is legitimately like really engaging.
Oh, they got the guy that it was like the Bond film before that movie. I can't remember which one, but they got the guy that did the tank.
Casino Royale.
Yeah, they got the guy that did the tank scene in that movie
Ooh.
to direct the Tumblr scene.
See, that makes sense. See, it's well
Yeah.
done. There's practical effects, and that one's pretty cool. When he's like going on the rooftops, I'm like, it's pretty awesome.
And I love the cops. They're like freaking out. They're just like, he's not on a street. He's flying on
It's
rooftops.
on the roof.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I think
can you
there's
at least
that.
tell me what it looks like?
There's a really great fire stunt where they set Batman on fire, or they send a stunt double on fire, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
jumps out a window onto
my
a car.
You need to lighten up.
There, I was legitimately impressed by that. I would say any effects in this movie have aged really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything with the train has aged pretty well.
Even the CGI, like, there's not much of it, but like it ages pretty well.
Yeah, I have to commend that, and that's also because of the use of like it's harder to have CGI in light, so masking it in
Yeah, that's
darkness is
true.
better.
That's
Um,
true.
I think the score is wonderful.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always
Oh, the
been a
score
big
is really
fan,
good. Yeah.
because I mean Hans Zimmer's probably one of the best working composers out there.
I like what Piss Fuckman said about the score in this movie, because I watched his review of this movie a long time ago, and he said that I just listen to the soundtrack when like I'm working out or I'm in the car, and he's like that's not a really good thing, because like I forget the name of the theme, but it's like whatever plays when the Tumblr shows up, and he's like that's not a good song to drive to.
No, he's just like,
It's
yeah.
like,
Oh, I
And also,
completely agree.
there's a couple Easter eggs on that soundtrack too, actually. For
The
example,
fact
like all the
it spells
tracks.
out Batman.
Yeah, but all the tracks are also named after like species of bats.
Oh,
Oh,
And,
okay.
and then
Hans
like
Zimmer.
and then like 6 of them also spell out Batman, but there's
Yeah.
that too.
I think the
Wow.
score is really great. And I think this provides the template for the better Batman movies, which isn't necessarily a thing, but the stuff that it does well, I think allow it or are elevated further in other movies. And then that's kind of because eventually we're going to talk about The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, and I do enjoy those movies more than this one. If I were to like, I think it's like my rankings go Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins. But that's just me. I don't know. Do you guys have any other like elements that stood out for you before we go to Hallmark scenes and kind of stuff like that?
Do you guys want to talk about like the Christopher Nolanizing effect of superhero movies?
Oh
Yeah.
god, yeah.
Um,
So many movies try to be this Batman Begins.
So this basically comes out 2005. We had one, and it was the first. Well, we had attempts at darker superhero movies or superhero movies that tackled darker themes. You had X-Men 2 was kind of like the main prevalent one, and I know you guys are going to crap on it, but Spider-Man 2 came out as well, and it tackles themes of like identity and things like that.
Being
and
a
stuff that,
cuckold.
yeah,
Yeah, being in a gaslighting relationship
And
and why it's okay.
and not getting over your dead uncle.
Okay, so we have all of that. So Bruce Wayne's entire identity is around his dead parents. Shut
Yeah,
up.
but Bruce Wayne's a sociopath. What's
That's a good
Spider-Man's excuse?
That's a good point. Well, it
Bruce
basically
Wayne's the kind of person that makes the entrance to his secret lair the time that his parents died on a grandfather clock. He's not a normally adjusted
he's not.
person.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, basically, I'm just saying it ultimately transitions superhero movies to take this darker approach, and we see attempts with that in like Spider-Man 3, where like it's just a little bit darker in tone.
Oh
and
yeah,
things
no,
just
that
feel
scene
more
where he's
serious.
down the street.
Van
that was
Forstick tried
terrifying.
it.
Yeah, Fan Forstick. It's
Um,
Van Forstick
basically
tried it 10 years after it happened.
it basically reshapes superhero origin movies. It reshapes them to go, look, darker and more thematic movies can work.
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, that is
And they talk about Man of Steel and like, oh, made a horrible mistake.
Well, I
ultimately-
want to make a point that isn't just roasting Man of Steel, because like there are, I feel like, movies that adapted a lot of what Batman Begins did tonally and worked. Like for example, I think that like 2008's Iron Man was like semi-inspired by Batman Begins, not because it's darker or like just like filled with monologues, but more that it treated the main character like someone that's emotional and
Yeah.
broken and damaged. And like also fucking like season 1 of Daredevil, that's critically acclaimed. I feel like that's also heavily inspired by Batman Begins, with like saturated colors, like ugly street shots, better
Yeah.
action, but and
Daredevil
also
season 1
like,
is basically that.
and it's
That's a
also
good
like
point.
literally like based on Batman Begins, because there's like a bit in like the second to last episode of season 1 where he's like, Mr. Potter, I need you to make something for me. He's like, and he's like crying because Daredevil just beat him up. He's like, you want me to make a suit like Mr. Fisk? And he puts on like a piece of paper on the table. He's like, no, I want you to make me a symbol. It's just like that's literally Batman
Yeah.
Begins.
It basically, but
But
also
then
like
you also get like Amazing Spider-Man, which like tried something darker and more mature, and it worked in. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it worked in areas. And then you get Man of Steel.
yeah, I just want to say one more quick thing. I have to really commend Nolan in this aspect, and the fact that Batman Begins comes out 2005, its sequel comes out 2008, and the third movie in the trilogy comes out in 2012. That is not something that happens anymore.
Oh
Now
yeah,
with the immense oversaturated superhero market, having 3 and 4 years in between your major iconic characters and blockbusters to let kind of like excitement build and breathe is astounding. It's not something that ever happens again. Because now
I remember being
like,
so excited for The Dark Knight Rises to come out.
exactly.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, we've waited 4 years. Dark Knight come out, and Dark Knight it's like this cultural phenomenon, and we had to wait 4 years. And no, it's no longer like Star Wars. We have to wait a year and stuff like that. It's genuinely
Or with Marvel
commendable.
movies, you only have to wait 6 months.
Yeah, like it's like one of
Given
those things where
COVID.
like
Yeah, before COVID.
Yeah,
well, if you
before
take a
COVID.
look at like this example, like Spider-Man: Homecoming comes out, but then Spider-Man's in 3 other movies, and then the sequel comes out. It's like, okay, well, we didn't really have to wait for this, considering we just saw the
Yeah.
character. This one, it's commendable. Where do you guys place it on kind of like your Nolan repertoire? Alex, I don't know if you've seen how many Nolan movies you've seen, but
Yeah, no, I feel like this is gonna be immediately on the top. So like, I feel like my opinion doesn't matter in this question.
yeah. What about for Mark? Where is this in your Nolan repertoire? Where do you put this in his kind of like filmography? Because I know I have this.
I'd have to think about it. Well, let me see if I can reason it out just right now talking. I know for a fact that my favorite Nolan film is Interstellar. That film definitely has a lot of flaws, but that's like one of those films that really affected me when it came out. I do not like Inception that much. So that's probably closer to the bottom of my list. It's probably like Interstellar and Dark Knight as 1 and 2, top 1 and 2. Number 3 would probably be Dark Knight Rises, and then maybe 4 would be Batman Begins. I think.
Sorry.
Would that be 4? Yeah, that'd be 4. Yeah.
Mine would probably be Dark Knight, The Prestige, maybe Inception, Batman Begins. I haven't seen Inception for a very long time, though.
You like The Prestige a lot?
Yeah.
Batman Begins is my second least favorite Nolan movie. I'm not a big fan of The Prestige at all. But it's probably like I'm all because
Well, it's okay to be stupid.
It's okay to be stupid. But it's always like the top
what's your most
two.
hated?
Yeah,
Most hated? I'm just curious.
me?
Yeah,
Following?
Like, hated
No, The
Nolan
Prestige.
movie.
I'm not a big fan of The Prestige.
You
Yeah.
didn't say.
Wait, you like Insomnia more than The Prestige?
I like Insomnia slightly more than The Prestige. Which is like, yeah, I know, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I wasn't like, everything just missed the mark for The Prestige for me. But it's like, Dunkirk and Dark Knight are the two like great ones.
Yeah, Dunkirk's your favorite. Dunkirk's the worst one.
Thanks. And then I'm a big fan like Inception and like Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar are on that same middle tier for me. I was just really curious because this one, I was looking up reviews for this, and Batman Begins is praised. It's like, this is like Nolan's best, or this is the best Batman movie. And we've talked about this extensively already, but I do have a lot of issues with it. I don't know if you guys had any final points about the movie before we get into hallmark scenes and
Well, I wanted to bring up the point that you mentioned about like when you're talking about like how this kind of movie doesn't happen anymore. Like
Yeah.
it was almost like a breath of fresh air rewatching this last night. Like it's not like a tie-in to like a major universe. Like I mean, there's a flash forward at the very end, like with Dark Knight and Joker, but like you don't need to watch that movie to enjoy that scene.
Yeah.
And it's also like it's just kind of nice to watch a self-contained story instead of one that's like part 5 in a 22-year long cinematic endeavor. And like it's kind of like similar to like comic books as a medium, because like what alienates a lot of people is the fact that these are series that have been going on for 80 plus years, and it's kind of intimidating to get into that. That's why more self-contained stuff succeeds. So like that's something that like I kind of picked up while watching it.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the pacing and the length of this movie before we talk about
It's too long.
I think it's too long.
I think the beginning could be trimmed down a bit. That's about it.
I agree with Matt.
Yeah, I'm very much in a similar boat. I think, again, we should probably prep. This movie's 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Matt and I are very much on record of being massive proponents of the 90-minute movie.
90-minute, hour 45.
Hour, minute, hour 45. We basically Matt and I one summer basically wrapped our entire summer around seeing hour and a half, hour 45-minute movies. And I do think the beginning of this movie could have been trimmed a little bit. I think 2 hours is the perfect length for this kind of movie. Because a lot of it eventually, and I think the pacing for the first 45 minutes is really tough to get through because it's slow. But then after that, I think the pacing's fine. I think there enough happens and it moves fast enough where it's engaging and things work. But yeah, this movie's about 10, 15 minutes too long for me. What about for you, Matt, Alex? Mark, Alex, I mean.
I agree with Matt on the cutting of the
Yeah, he
beginning.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, I never had an issue with it. I mean, I could see like where you could trim the fat, I guess, but like yeah, like something like 2 hours would probably be better. But I was fine for like an extra 13 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't watch that many movies that often anyway, so like
Mm.
I don't get burnt out that fast. At least me. I mean, I'm not saying you guys get burnt out, but I'm just saying for me, it's like watching 1 2 hour and 13-minute movie like once every couple of weeks doesn't hurt me.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
Hallmark scenes.
Hallmark scenes. This is basically our favorite scenes, elements, aspects of the movie that we loved and that really stand out. Alex, you pick. You can nominate a few if you want.
Oh God, how much time you got?
If
How
you-
about I just talk about the whole movie? No, some Hallmark scenes. I mean, you guys are gonna hate me for this, but obviously, like, I love the first appearance of Batman. Like,
Yep.
I love that scene. I already explained why. Obviously, love the ending scene. Like, I watched that ending scene with like the Joker card and like them on the bat signal. I love that scene, and like every time I watch it, I feel like this universe and this Gotham and this world we've only scratched the surface of it, and I kind of like remember that we only scratched the surface of it later on in later movies. And like when I watched like them talk about like blah, 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 escalation, like I feel like that can be more than just like the Joker. It can mean like, oh, a crime boss who likes to carry an umbrella, or like a narcissistic homicidal maniac who likes riddles, or like a botanist with like some shit, or a guy with like a skin disease that makes him look like a crocodile. And like
Tyler.
yeah.
or me.
Like the thing about like Batman Begins is that like I feel like it works so well as like a starting point for almost any adaptation of Batman. Like you could like watch Batman Begins and understand anything for like the like other movies or TV shows or video games or comic books. And like I feel like you just scratch the surface of it like at the that's like one of my minor gripes with like the sequels is that like I feel like we didn't get that much out of it. We got 4, maybe 5 villains out of like Batman's massive rogues gallery. Where like in Batman Begins, we see like there's like references to other like Batman villains, like the guy that Cillian Murphy is like saying should go to Arkham Asylum instead of prison. Like when you meet him for the first time, that's Victor Zsasz, a B-list serial killer Batman villain. And it's just like I feel like that whole asylum could have just been filled with like different interpretations of like rogues gallery. And like that's why I love like that final scene because it kind of just alludes like there's way more out there that we haven't seen yet. I'm trying to think of other scenes. Like I like the Arkham Asylum scene where like he's picking off dudes from the shadows. Oh, I love
shower.
the shower. Yeah, the asylum showers. Oh, I love this.
Did you watch the right Batman film?
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman XXX Begins, right?
Yeah.
But I love the backup scene. Like I love that scene with a passion. I watched that scene on its own so many times. Where like he zips Gordon up to the top floor and a SWAT team storms in, and he's just like meet me by the alley, and he hits the thing in his bat boot, and he's just like, and Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon. He's like, what is that? And he's just looking down. He's like, backup, and it just like storms through all the windows. It makes no sense, but I love it. Like I don't think a barrage of bats could break through a glass window, but I still love it. And, like everyone's like thrashing, just like ah.
Yeah.
And like I just love that scene for so many reasons. One, like the score is perfect. Also, I just love like the intensity in Bruce Wayne Batman's face as he's just looking down at all the bats thrashing the SWAT guards. I love the scene where he throws it down and they follow and he just jumps into it. Because I feel like that's kind of I don't know if it's intentional, but it's like it's a callback to like the opening of the movie when he fell into the cave with all the bats and he was thrashing, but he's falling down and he's like stoic and confident in himself. And yeah, no, and just like the effects are good in that scene. I just love the intensity of it. It's ripped literally from my favorite Batman comic, Batman Year One. I love that. That's probably like definitely top 3, probably number 1 favorite scenes from this movie.
Awesome. Matt, what do you got?
Mine's probably when he's making the suit.
I love that too.
I think I like the music. I like the music that goes along with it. I think there's some pretty good dialogue, and it's just fun to like watch him make it. And as he's getting more inspired by the like his fear of bats and stuff, he wants people to feel how he feels. That was probably my favorite scene, and I like a lot of the scenes that Alex talked about as well. But I think watching them make the bat suit is probably when I was most engaged in the movie.
That's another one of my favorites. Also, just like I kind of just love like the techno babble they gave, because that's like I said, this movie kind of inspired me to go into engineering, and like all like it's like, oh, it's Kevlar plates over a titanium dipped tri-weave fiber, or like Nomex survival suit or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I want to look it up. And that's like what inspired me, like as he's like hodgepodging all these like different prototypes from Wayne Tech into like this cobbled together bat suit. It doesn't look as cobbled together as like Robert Pattinson's, but like I kind of get a feel that like this is just kind of something he threw together. And I like how like they mentioned how he outsourced the parts for his cowl in like bulk orders with shipping with shell companies in orders of 10,000 to like cover that up. Like I just love how like the rationale behind that. I love it.
Yeah. Mark, what do you got?
Like Alex said, I really like the final scene with the Joker card. I love the implication of it, of like there's more going on here, and we've barely scratched the surface. I think I love that scene so much. It's very hype.
And like that smirk Gary Oldman gives after he's like, "I'll never have to," and then he just smiles and Batman flies away.
Yeah, I love the swear to me scene, because when the guy first goes all the way up and he like looks Batman in the face, there's like maybe 1 to 2 seconds where Batman's just like, he's just like his face is like shaking. He's just so mad. It's like, whoa, okay,
damn,
hey man, relax. And then I like the rooftop scene with the tumbler.
Yeah,
great scene.
And then I like the one-on-one fight scenes with Ra's al Ghul, his training process. When all the ninjas come in, I don't know about that, but
I kind of agree.
But the one-on-one training, even though it's like really ham-fisted dialogue, it's so enjoyable to watch.
I also kind of like the moment like after they're doing like the sword fighting. I like the bit like where they're talking by the fire, and like Ra's al Ghul is basically like teaching Bruce about like the dangers of like letting anger consume your life. Like I thought that was like pretty important.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Tumblr scene. I think it's the best set piece thing in the movie.
Tumblr's your favorite website?
What?
What's Tumblr's your favorite website?
Not after they got rid of the porn.
Yeah.
Tyler's like, I can't deal with this.
I can't deal with Tumblr anymore. Yeah, basically, it's also that. I mean, the music combination where it's that slow build-up is really excellent. So yeah, Mark's sleepy time moments. If you don't know what those are, Mark falls asleep, watches movies, 5 stars, wakes up, claps, applauds.
Even 5 stars before he wakes up.
4 stars.
4 stars. He throws roses. He just woo, yay.
He cries. He cries. His best movie he's ever seen in his life until the next movie he sees.
And he writes it down in a little notebook, but we've never actually seen the notebook, so it could just be Mark just drawing lines, and we're just like, oh, yay.
It says 824 on it.
No, it's like
I got a sticker. And I put it on.
This is a reference Tyler's not gonna get, but it's gonna be like we find Mark's book and we just like do the pencil trick, and it's just like a guy, like a doodle of a guy fucking a girl, like the scene in The Big Lebowski. You remember, Matt?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like at the porno guy's house, and he's like, he takes a note down and he wants to copy what he's doing, and it's just like a doodle of 2 guys fucking.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and that's exactly what Mark's notebook is like.
Well, Mark's notebook has.
That's what it looks like.
We can't see it.
It's empty.
No.
It's empty. Oh dear God! One movie doesn't have any ratings on there. I saw that. All right, Mark, sleepy time.
I don't rate rewatches. Okay.
Least favorite scenes. What do you guys got?
Alex, what's your least favorite scene, if you have one?
I mean, I kind of have to like. I'm willing to bet Tyler's gonna agree with me, but I kind of thought like the romance with Bruce and Rachel was kind of Like, I mean, I get the purpose of it. It's supposed to be a tie to who Bruce Wayne was before his parents died and became Batman. But like the romance, like honestly, I don't think it was really needed that much.
I want to agree with that. When she goes, and then I saw your mask, but not that mask.
Yeah,
this mask. I'm like, okay, I'm out.
The
I'm like, I'm
ham-fisted,
done.
your real face is the one that criminals now fear.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, we get it. I didn't think that was super great.
It also shows like the performance of Katie Holmes when Maggie Gyllenhaal can replace her in the next movie, and like
Yep.
no one notices.
Yeah, no one cares. Everyone's like,
No one
oh, this is a good choice.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is like holding a shotgun to her head, just like you're not doing this movie.
You're not doing it. Oh, Tom Cruise. That's allegedly. We don't know that for
Yeah,
certain.
we don't know that for
We're
sure. We don't
lawyers.
make any statements.
Allegedly.
Yeah, mine's
Um,
probably the fight. Anytime fists fly, just kind of took me out of it a bit. And then I think the intro could have been trimmed a bit. I kind of don't like it when parents are like too good. You know, like you can give
God.
Thomas Wayne some edge. Like he's just too. He's like too pure.
I disagree.
He's a symbol.
Yeah, but you got like it's just you gotta give him something, man.
Do you want him to go? Do you want Batman him to go? I'm scared of bats. Like,
No, have him just be like, have a scene where he has to like screw over another like company or something, but it's for the best of Gotham or some crap like
But no,
that.
that's the point. Is that he's supposed to be like the symbol of purity. He's like literally supposed to be like the idea of all that is good in Gotham.
No one gets that rich without stepping on a few hands on his way up to the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, probably like his great grandfather stepped on a couple hands because the Wayne fortune is old money.
Yeah, I don't know. It
Plus-
just bothers me.
Plus,
Just,
Thomas
like,
Wayne didn't even like run the company. You saw like Mr. Earl does that.
but he has to maintain it. Like he has to make decisions on it. He's
Can
the head of the
can I throw out
company.
an economics question for you guys? They say the company goes public and Bruce Wayne's selling his shares, but then he sells the shares and then immediately buys more shares. With what
Yeah.
money? And that made me laugh.
Mark, what does Robin Hood say about this?
Oh, wait.
Mark,
So
do you have
what's your
least favorite
question?
scene?
What's your
No,
question?
that was just a stupid dumb joke.
Yeah, no, it's just a stupid joke.
Mark, do you have any
uh,
least favorite Mark Sleepy Time moments?
All the events that happen between the minute the movie starts to 2 hours and 14 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Mark was asleep the whole time and only woke up for the ending bit.
yes, 1 star. For some reason, the scene in the mansion when Ra's al Ghul shows up, I don't know why. I do not like that scene. I have an irrational hatred for that scene. Don't know why. It's irrational.
Okay.
Because when he shows up, like Ra's al Ghul shows up and confronts Bruce Wayne, I just pause the movie and went on my phone for like 10 minutes. I'm just like, I don't want to look at
How
this right now.
dare you? I wouldn't do that for one of your. I didn't check my phone during Ad Astra, damn it.
Hey, Ad Astra's a good movie.
So
Okay.
before we get to grades, I did only a little bit of research for this. I just have
Here it
one
comes.
little key piece of information. Who was there are 3 actors besides Cillian Murphy who were tapped to star or potentially star
I said this.
besides Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, I said this though.
Yeah, but you
Yeah, he
didn't
said
get,
Ian whatever. Or,
Yeah,
Nope.
Ian Bailey.
Nope, those
Yeah.
3. There were 3 other ones.
I think
Who are the
Walking
3?
Phoenix was one of them, right?
Nope, who are the 3?
No, Walking Phoenix was Darren Aronofsky's Batman.
Mark Wahlberg, Armie Hammer.
Armie Hammer was not a known commodity by this point.
John Hamm.
I don't think John Hamm was a known commodity by this point either. You have to frame it like 2003, 2004.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Tom Cruise.
That would have been awesome.
No, it would have been awful.
Leo. No, Leo's too young.
Robert Downey Jr.
Tobey Maguire.
Oh, the wrestler, Randy the Ram.
Randy the Ram, Mickey Rourke. Okay, guys, since you guys are terrible at guessing, someone said Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
did.
That was one of them. The other one was Heath Ledger.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. He did audition for that.
So you ready for this third one? Ashton
Robin
Kutcher.
Williams.
I did know
Wow,
that.
that would
Oh,
be great.
Yeah, it would have been awesome. It was tapped. It was been like a Michael Keaton in the first Batman movie where Michael Keaton was a comedic kind of like family actor and then he played Batman.
Mr. Mom.
I would have killed to see Ashton Kutcher in this movie because he's still
I
in
would
that
have
70s
killed
show.
myself to see Ashton Kutcher in this movie. I would have actually just been like, no.
All
I
right,
don't like Batman anymore.
grades. We're grade stuff on an A, B, C, D, F scale.
I won't let us do pluses or minuses for some reason.
I will not. I hold
So,
everyone hostage
This is
here.
a tyrannical dictatorship. I don't know. Do you want me to go last? Because I feel like my feelings on this movie are like pretty blatant.
Yeah, no, well, that's why you go first. 'cause
Okay,
we're
fine. Friday, like a couple days before I watched this movie, I was expecting to pull like a redacted Dune, where I was gonna be like Mark, be like, oh yeah, I give this movie a be. You know, it has its problems, but I watched it last night. Now, I don't care about the flaws of this movie. I'm giving this thing a fucking A. Like,
All right.
I love this movie. It has had such an important influence on not only like blockbuster cinema as a whole, but also me
Yeah.
as a person. It has impacted my life in so many ways that I can't even name. And also, it's one of the greatest adaptations of one of my favorite characters. Maybe not the best movie with them in it, but I think this is the best adaptation of Batman, and
Yeah.
this is the best Batman movie in my opinion, and I love it.
Yeah.
A.
Matt, what do you give it?
C, for all
C?
the reasons I already
Woo,
stated.
passing.
Mark, what do you give this movie?
I'd say I'd give it a really high C. I don't know if
Really
I'd
high C.
cross the threshold to B. I think
It's not in Dune territory yet.
no, not in Dune territory.
Or the
For
Marine.
those who don't know, we reviewed Dune, but we didn't publish the episode because it was embarrassing.
The trailer's out.
It's
Published
trailer's
embarrassing.
out.
We're so awkward. in it.
Tyler's holding the recording hostage, but in that video, they both
Release the Dune cut.
Never.
Yeah, we'll release it.
I gave it a B
Hashtag release the
because-
Dune cut.
because I blindly followed David Lynch.
Yeah.
But my reasoning being, I think this is a good movie. I just don't exactly. It doesn't exactly appeal to me. I don't think it's like objectively bad, but for me, I'll have to give it a high C.
I am in the same. I'm gonna give it a C. I think there's enough.
Yay, we're
I-
passing. That's all I wanted.
But our Insomnia review, we all gave Insomnia a C, and now Batman Begins, we all gave it a C. And I feel like Dunkirk, you guys aren't gonna love as much as I do. But I basically, for all the reasons that I've stated before, I think I have issues with the dialogue and the action in this movie. And unfortunately, for a movie that is a dialogue-heavy movie with action scenes, like most action movies, some of it just falls really flat. I think there is still a lot of really good stuff. The movie, when Christopher Nolan's on his A game, he's really damn good, and I think there are shines of that greatness in the directing of it, and I think the score is great. I think the performances are great, but this one still has too many flaws for me, and it's not kind of like Mark. This movie just like I've just kind of like aged out of this particular movie a little bit. I loved it when I was a lot younger, but as I got older, I just kind of have a hard time enjoying it. I don't know when the next time I'm going to watch it again is, but I think like a lack of rewatchability for me.
Next time you need some views. And
Yeah, next time I need some
clickbaity
views.
Title.
All right. What we've been watching section, where we go with what we've been watching, playing, reading, basically anything we want to talk about that we've been doing. Anyone want to go first? Anyone volunteer?
I'll go first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you lost it, Mark.
Okay.
I watched The Assassin, 2015. It's a
Ooh.
movie from Taiwan. It won the Cannes Film Festival Best Director a couple of years ago. It's good. And I was on Netflix a while ago, and I wanted to watch it then, but then it went away, and I didn't get to watch it. And I saw it on Amazon Prime, so I'll watch it. And this is probably one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen from a visual standpoint. The cinematography is kind of incredible, honestly. It takes place in Taiwan, and just the landscapes are amazing. And the set design inside, like, 'cause it's about like nobility in China, and like the costumes, the interior of palaces is all incredibly beautiful. A lot of it's told visually. Like, there's not like a whole lot of dialogue in the movie, but it's about this girl who's been trained to be assassin because her mother, who was like the empress, disposed her for her younger brother. And the younger brother is now like the ruler of this area, and the assassin lady wants to get the crown back. I think the movie kind of struggles with character because, again, a lot of there's not a lot of dialogue, and the movie's pretty short. It's only an hour and a half, so like I kind of wasn't sympathetic with as many of the characters as I'd like to be. But the movie's so well shot, and from what character we have is good enough. It's serviceable enough that I really liked it, and I kind of want to watch it again because there's a lot of convoluted like politics going on as well that I would like to understand better on second watch. But I recommend it if you like foreign films and kung fu films because this movie is incredibly beautiful.
I've never seen a Taiwanese film before. I'm very curious about it now, honestly.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, so just check it out.
I should. Anything else, Matt?
I saw Seventh Seal.
Yeah, I watched that one too.
Yeah, so we'll probably
Let's
can both talk about it if you
Should
want.
we do it now? Should we just
Yeah.
talk
Let's
about
do
it?
like a brief discussion.
Yeah. So I really appreciated aspects of this movie. I thought it was kind of boring at times though. But it's incredible how comparable Seventh Seal is today because it takes place in Sweden and during the Black Plague. and it's really incredible how like much it compares to what's going on right now with COVID.
Well, I'll lay the scene a little bit for the viewers. The Seventh Seal is the 1957 film directed by Ingmar Bergman.
We did it,
And the-
Matt. Bringing up franchise mutiny. Look, we're talking about Bergman. Look,
Yeah.
good for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Franchise Mutiny, if you're watching this, because you finally got these clowns to watch Ingmar
I
Bergman.
wasn't even thinking about it when I watched it. But okay.
So the story is, for those who don't know, it's a knight is returning from the Crusades back home, and this is during the Black Plague, and he is confronted by the physical manifestation of death on a beach, and he challenges death himself to a game of chess. And so if death wins the game of chess, then the knight he dies. And so that's the sort of the setting for the story. It's like the chess match with death. So
yeah. I thought some scenes were really haunting. Like the last shot was very haunting. But then there's scenes like when the guy's up in the tree and that's cutting him down. Like I couldn't tell that's supposed to be played for laughs or not.
What? That's for laughs.
Yeah, that one.
But I could. Part of it was
play
played for laughs, but then like when he falls and dies, that wasn't supposed to be funny.
It's morbidly funny. That's the point.
I don't think so. I don't think that's what they're going for at the end.
I think if you watch a little more Ingmar Bergman, you'll see that like he.
I've seen Persona. That's all I need to see.
It's dark humor. He has some dark. That's '60s Bergman. He sort of was having like a big like. '50s was like him dealing with his faith, and then like '60s was him dealing with reality, or like.
But I mean, I haven't looked at any like interpretations of the movie, but if I was to take a wild guess, I'd say it's about how people worship death more than Christianity itself, more than enjoying life itself.
Yeah.
Because there's like that scene where the painter, where he's like, "Oh, I just saw pictures of people dying," and it's like, well, people don't want to see it. It's like, yeah, it's like no, everyone wants to see it, and then it's just at the end, like almost all the characters are now like walking hand in hand with death, and there's a scene before that where they're all kneeling before him. So I guess like that'd be the point. And then there's the Persona lady and her family. They live alone, and they're more optimistic, and like the guy sees Mother Mary walking, and you can just tell they appreciate the more faithful side of religion, kind of like in Calvary, where in Brendan
everything comes back to Calvary.
Yeah, where Brendan Gleeson's like, I think virtue is an underrated aspect of religion. So there's cool things like that are comparable, and then there's a scene where they're doing their show and like everything's happy and jolly, and then all the morbid the whole like congregation comes, everyone's being
where they're
whipped,
whipping each
and
other,
everyone's miserable and talking about how unworthy they are. So that was interpreted. I would say that it's about people worshiping like the suffering aspect of religion more than like the faithful side of religion, the virtuous side of religion. So that part I kind of appreciated, and there's some really striking visuals I really enjoyed, but there was this lull when they're in the forest where it's just like, okay, let's just there's too many characters and not all of them are very relevant to this, and let's just kind of get this going. But I'm glad I watched it, and I would say it's because Persona is just so weird that it's kind of weird watching a movie that had like a plot to it that you could tell. But I will be watching more Ingmar Bergman movies at some point.
I would just quickly advise when you watch an Ingmar Bergman film, pay close attention to how he sets up the camera, because I've heard from so many filmmakers that they say like the way he sets up a shot, at first your instinct is like, whoa, this is kind of weird, but then you realize like, oh my god, this is the shot, this is how you shoot this the subject, and like that's what like all the filmmakers say, like even like Scorsese. It's just, so that's what I do when I watch like The Seventh Seal. I sort of picked up, I'm like, that's a really weird place to put the camera, but like makes the movie even more interesting. So I would advise that on further viewings.
Yeah, it's we're basically entering into like sacred territory talking about this movie, where anything rather than mass acclaim of every single facet of the movie is basically you're bastardizing the awe-inspiring aspects of this movie. And I echo a lot of your sentiments, Matt. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that are genuinely really great. I think the performances, these long, like, emotional monologues are really engaging, but there's also, like, horrible pacing issues where you're basically, like, shining away from the less interesting parts of the movie. And I desperately wish there were more engagements between Antonius Block and Death, because that stuff Like that one scene, probably my favorite scene of the movie is when he believes he's confessing to a priest, and it turns
Yes.
out to be death. But that's like
Yes.
when he's like gripping the divider. He's like, I don't know, like what about God? Like, is he there? And kind of like all these like this hard like topics about religion and death, and it turns and it's like a mockery of it. And it's just like, oh look, now I have a head up, an advantage on you, and that stuff is so engaging. But you're right, there are long sequences when they're just in the forest and we're following characters like Yoff or whatever,
Off.
Jon.
Yoff or
John.
whatever
No.
it is.
Jones.
Not
The squire.
not the squire, the
knight.
not the knight, the circus guy with his wife and his kid.
Oh
You're
yeah.
following them, and it's just so less interesting than what has also previously been on screen that you kind of take a step back. I'm gonna echo again, like what you said. That final shot where they're all holding hands and they're framed in a shadow and they're dancing is like genuinely really haunting. Like you look at it and you're just like, dear God, that's so creepy.
Yeah.
And again, it's at times really effective. But I also can like I understand the acclaim. It's like it's a very mixed bag. It's one of those movies I'm gonna watch again, and I'm gonna hopefully I'm gonna go through Bergman and then watch it again and be like, oh, it is better. But
And it's not like the movie's that long either. It's an hour and a half. So when the pacing when it feels long at such like a short runtime, I feel like that's kind of a problem too.
Yeah.
It's not like the movie's like 2 hours, 50 minutes long. It's
not like Batman Begins.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just on the topic of the Seventh Seal. Oh, sorry, Tyler.
No, that's it. That was just like
Okay.
it's scary to talk about this movie because saying anything critical about Bergman is like you're smiting a god.
Well,
You're taking a
you should also say like, or I'll point out that Bergman, he felt a lot of his like later on in his life when he like retired from filmmaking, he felt like, at least like 30% of his movies were garbage. He was like reflecting on like one of his first movies. He was like, oh yeah, I did not. That was horrible. And there are movies that are still propped up today is like amazing. So see, there's the contradiction. Seventh Seal is one of the movies he was most proud of, he said. But I'll briefly talk. This video is getting kind of long, but I'll just say that the Seventh Seal is like one of those movies that just changed everything for me. Just the way I viewed the potential of cinema as a whole. I watched it for the first time earlier this year in January. I had listened to a podcast, the A24 podcast, and Robert Eggers and Ari Aster were discussing The Lighthouse and Midsummer, and Robert Eggers was like on this like mission to like make the whole podcast about Ingmar Bergman, and I was like, who's Ingmar Bergman guy? I don't know who he is, and so I just like read like, oh, just start with the Seventh Seal and go from there, and I watched it, and it dealt with like a lot of issues, like think of the scene that you talked about, Tyler, with Antonius Block and his confessions and all that stuff. I was like, wow, this is really touching on some dark shit that I've thought about it once or twice in my life, and just the whole like faith thing, and I was totally blown away. And then the final shot is burned into my brain. Yeah. And, then the quote, like, in death, the strict master bids them dance. It's like this movie the ending is like happy, but also horribly depressing and horrific.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
The movie also just looks beautiful. Like there's a lot of like focus. It's just background stuff, but like the grass and the water just looks like what we look at now, but just put in a black and white filter, which is really hard to do in considering like 1957. But you like look at it and there's so much detail in it, and you're like, wow, that's really impressive. So before we just becomes a 7 CO rant. Matt, did you watch anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Mark, what did you watch or read?
I read. I didn't read. I watched Nashville.
I read the cover.
Yeah, I read the back of this, and then,
I read the side too.
Yeah. So Nashville, 1975, by Robert Altman. And it's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I really enjoyed it.
Batman Begins.
I think what you said, Tyler, when we recently, you're like, it's like the darling of Criterion. Like that's why I picked it up, because I'd heard so much about it. And this movie is really good. I would definitely recommend it. It takes a while to win you over. It's long. There's a plot, but it's not a conventional plot. And it's like almost like this is like the kind of movie that sets the the groundwork for Paul Thomas Anderson, because Boogie Nights and Magnolia deal with so many characters, and this movie deals so many characters. And so Robert Altman really paved the way for Paul Thomas Anderson. And so in a way, it's almost like a Paul Thomas Anderson movie where you just have all these like characters that are all relatable and fleshed out, and it's just at like one point you realize like, holy shit, this is actually amazing. It took me like an hour and a half to realize it. There's still an hour left to go in the movie, but like for a while I was like, what is anything gonna happen? And then I realized, oh, that's the point. Like it's just life. We're just watching life happen. So very good. I definitely recommend checking that out.
Oh my God.
So I also started watching Bruce Lee. This is the Criterion box that came out in July, and I watched the first film in this box set, which is The Big Boss. Came out in 1971. It was Bruce Lee's first leading role. He was in Hollywood for a while. Couldn't get any roles. He got like one like side character on a TV show.
Yeah, the Green Hornet. They had a
Yeah, the Green Hornet.
The Green Hornet. They had a crossover with the '60s Batman show, and Bruce Lee refused to get beat up by Burt Ward, even though the script had it. He's like, no, I'm not letting that string bean beat me up.
Yeah.
And Burt Ward is like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. And so he went back to China, and he needed to get money to pay off his mortgage, I think, back in the States. So his plan was go to China, get some money, go back to the States, try and make it in Hollywood. And then he signs a 2-picture deal with this company, and so they bring him on, and the first one is the big Boss, and it's really good. Definitely start it if you want to get into Bruce Lee. Go there. If you're a Tarantino fan, definitely watch this. I mean, Tarantino clearly loves these movies because he pays homage to it in all of his films. I mean, Kill Bill. Uma Thurman's wearing the same outfit as Bruce Lee from I can't remember which movie that was, but the camera work, the zoom ins, like in Django Unchained, that's like just pulled from this movie. So I watched that. That was great. Highly recommend it. And then I finished The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and that was wonderful. I talked at length about it in the last episode.
I heard the characters are just so awful in that book.
They're absolutely despicable, but you want to know what happens to them.
Yeah,
they're not
that pretentious hack of Scott Fitzgerald with his wordy sentences.
Yeah.
Too many words.
The characters are so unrelatable.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Alex, did you watch or read or play anything?
I've been absorbing a bit of media. I'm gonna start off with like a basic normie thing, so I don't look like a Marvel shill or anything. But I watched Breaking Bad recently.
I can tell by your background.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't look. Yeah, I watched Breaking Bad for the first time recently. It was pretty good. I mean, I could see why people love it. I especially love I always forget his name, but the guy that plays Gus Fring, like he's incredible.
Giancarlo
Esposito.
That's him, yeah. And also, like, funny enough, like, he's in The Boys season 2, so I was like, you know what, maybe I should get around to watching Breaking Bad. It's pretty good. I kind of felt like seasons 2 and 5 were really meh. I love seasons 3 and 4. They were great. Especially, like, I feel like you could have just ended on, like, the ending at season 4, and, like, I would have been fine with that. Like, pretty solid show. Yeah, not something I usually watch, but I was like, you know what, this is what basic people watched back in the day, so I figured it's got to be good.
So you watched the whole thing?
Yeah, no, it's all on Netflix. I watched the whole thing. Funny.
Did you know that there's the movie too?
Yeah, funny enough, my mom watched the movie without watching Breaking Bad, because like I guess like on the title card on Netflix or something, like it doesn't say Breaking Bad, but then when you
El
pause
Camino,
it, yeah, and then like when you pause it, it's like a Breaking Bad movie, El Camino, and my mom had no clue. So I was walking past and I saw like Jesse Pinkman. I thought it was just Aaron Paul playing another role.
Oh.
Also, like, I don't see Aaron Paul in many things, so I was like, holy shit. Fucking, why can't I think of his name from BoJack Horseman? Todd. I was like, Todd's in Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
But, yeah, so like,
Hooray.
she's watching something with, like, Aaron Paul. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's the same guy. I recognize him now. And then, like, I leave, and I come back later to get something, and my mom's like, hey, did they make a movie about Breaking Bad? I was like, yeah, I think so. Why? And she's like, I think I'm watching that. And like for reference, my mom has never watched Breaking Bad, so I should preface that. So she was like she's like, oh, it's pretty good. But then they like mentioned this Mr. White guy, and I had no clue what the hell they were talking about.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah,
What
let's
else have
see.
you? Is that anything
No,
else?
I've got more. So
Awesome.
I've recently been. So don't worry, this episode is gonna be even longer. I've been playing the Avengers Marvel video game published by Crystal Dynamics, who is best known for their work on the recent reboot of the Tomb Raider series. This video game is like very divisive and getting a lot of hate. I don't really get why. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like a perfect 10 out of 10, but like I'm having fun. Like it's like combat is like pretty serviceable. It's easy to learn, probably hard to master. I haven't mastered it, but like I'm able to hit the square button, so I'm doing something right. The story, it's not like Marvel's Spider-Man or like Arkham, but like it's solid. Like I have no gripes with it. It's pretty fun, pretty good. Uh, cast, it's not like anything like groundbreaking because like a lot of these voice actors are in like 15,000 other video games, but like they do a pretty good job. I especially love the guy that plays Carlos in Resident Evil 3 as Captain America. That's pretty fun. And like he's always like the way he interacts with stuff is funny. He has like an encyclopedia set in his room. He's like, I never got into that internet thing. And also Nolan North as Iron Man is pretty fun. Although,
Hmm.
I mean, I have to say this because, as Matt knows, me and Nolan North are best friends. So
Yeah.
but like there are moments where like I'm kind of just like, hey, it's Nathan Drake in an Iron Man suit, because there's like a bit where Iron Man's flying around and he crashes into something, and he's like, oh shit, and I'm like, that's literally just Nathan Drake. But yeah, no, like I'm not gonna say there's like a 10 out of 10 game, but like it's fun. It's probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10 for me. But people are trashing on it. I don't really get why. Like it's a serviceable licensed game. It's fun. Uh, you get to beat up robots as superheroes. What more do you want?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
makes sense.
fun. I don't know if you guys would like it. Maybe you'd like it if it was like on sale or something. Because like there's a multiplayer. I haven't done anything with that. But like, yeah, like I feel like if you guys are ever interested, maybe like if you're really like you're a diehard Marvel fan, check it out. But if you're just like a basic bitch that likes the movies and want to play a video game, maybe wait for it to go on sale or something.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Finally, you guys are gonna hate me for this, but I have been watching the like iconic and critically acclaimed JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with a couple of
Don't
my
even know what
buddies
that
on
is.
Netflix. It's like you see, it's like people don't really know about it much here because it's like it's like anime, but like it's like fucking huge in Japan. Like for example, like the guy that made JoJo, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he's had his work in the Louvre and he's also worked for Gucci. So like yeah, like this guy's got like an insane career.
Wow.
But JoJo's Bizarre Adventures follows the multi-generational story of the Joestar family, starting with part one with Jonathan Joestar, a young lad trying to become a gentleman while he's fighting, having a sibling rivalry with his adopted brother Dio, who is evil incarnate, and he must stop Dio from becoming the most powerful force on the planet from an ancient mask that they've found. And then part two is even better because Phantom Blood kind of sucks. I mean, it's fine, but like it's definitely not as good as the second part, Battle Tendency, which has the best JoJo played by Number One from Kids Next Door, and it's about a young New York man going up against Aztec gods with rippling biceps and totally heterosexual characters. It's fun. Like I used to tell people I watched the show, I like ironically, like, oh yeah, it's so stupid, it's fun. But like I'm watching it and I get to like the very ending of part two, and like after like it ends, I have to like this smile on my face. I'm like, oh god, I love this show. And just like the ending, like Joseph Joestar is like a great character because he's schmarmy, but he's also smart. And it's got like Sherlockian like outsmarting, like, oh, you play this move. Just like, oh, I'm doing this to cancel your move. Just like, ha, well, you were doing this. I did this. And he's like, no. And it's great. And it's also funny because like people kind of rag on the show for like, basic anime tropes. But the thing is, though, the thing that it's based off, the manga, I read the manga, it was written like 40 years ago, actually. So it's like the actual originator of all these tropes. And also a fun thing about this show is it doesn't really feel like an anime until part 3. Because like the first part takes place in London, and if you watch it in English, it's fine. Like English stuff is good. Don't bother with like reading Japanese and shit. At least if you're a basic normie like me. But like, and the second arc takes place predominantly in like Switzerland, Mexico, and mostly Italy. So there you go, Matt. So you can watch that.
There
Uh,
you go, Matt.
yeah, and then like
Viva Italia.
it doesn't really feel like an anime till like part 3 because like the opening takes place in Japan, but that's it. But yeah, it's great story involving vampires, sibling rivalry, Aztec gods, uh, rippling biceps, muscular men, Nazis. It's great. I love it. If anyone that's like afraid of anime, like probably not your thing. But if you're in for like a good time with a bunch of friends, highly recommend it. Great show.
Awesome.
Hey Tyler, what have you been watching?
I'll be quick. I watched 3 classic movies that don't need any more words about them. Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, and The Social Network. You don't really, yeah, I know, right? Oh my god. But I want to say real quick, if you haven't gotten a chance to rewatch The Social Network since it came out, because I was in that same boat where I saw it when I was younger, I was like, that was really good, and then it kind of like falls to the wayside a little bit. Absolutely check it out. It's one of the best edited movies I've seen in a long time. Yeah, I'd go watch that. It's probably David Fincher's best movie. I mean, I think on every capacity. I mean, you could argue a lot of different stuff, but I mean, Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket. I mean, what else? I can't contribute anything to that hasn't already been said in great length. But I do want to real quick. I watched a movie called Midnight Special that came out in 2016 with Jeff Nichols. It recently came on Netflix, and it's been one I've been meaning to check out for a few years. Jeff Nichols is a really interesting director. Made movies like Take Shelter and I think Loved or Loving and stuff like that. And it's good-ish. It has to be commended on a base level because of how little it conveys to the audience, and it kind of lets you piece things together on itself. I would say it lacks in certain like emotional depth because it's a combination of like an allegory for parenting and a science fiction movie. And also, sorry, Matt was talking. Matt's family's talking on his end. It distracted me. But
Yeah, my
ultimately,
family's talking right now so they can hear us.
so basically, it kind of doesn't capture both as well as I wanted it to, but the performances are good, and all around it's a decent movie. It's moderately short, so you can take a look, and you can watch it. It's on Netflix. So before we're very long. We're about an hour and a half in. Matt, what's our call to
Like,
action?
comment, subscribe, whatever.
Well,
Tune
okay.
in next time.
As long as it's me.
Okay, because I'll say it. Because all right, like, comment, subscribe. We're on all podcast apps. We want to thank you guys for support for the MTV
Yeah,
Vending
good.
Things.
Join, like,
Matt,
whatever.
shut up.
No one's gonna watch this
It was
video.
Professional.
This is Matt. This has been Film Fries, and goodbye.
Wait, no. What, Matt? What's our next week episode?
The Girl That Drank Tattoo. So
Oh,
watch
my
it.
God. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Matt is very unprofessional. And goodbye.